In this video, we're going to be solving one-step equations using multiplication and division. Then we're going to justify each step, and then we're going to check our answers. So in this first problem, we have negative n divided by 5 equals negative 3. Now we really want to get rid of that negative sign and that 5 in the denominator. So right now that 5 is dividing the n. So what would be the inverse of dividing? It would be multiplying. Now we can take this negative symbol right here with the 5. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to multiply both sides by negative 5. That's what's known as the multiplication property of equality. So by the rule of inverses, our 5s will cancel out and the negatives cancel out, and that leaves us with n equals a positive 15. Now when it says to justify each step, what it wants to know is, what was this called? What let us do that? And what let us do that was the property, the multiplication property of equality. Well, we still need to check our answer and make sure that it's right and that we didn't mess up. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our original equation, but this time, instead of writing the n, we're going to replace the n, we're going to replace that with the answer we got. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to plug in 15. And so now if we do the work over here, so what is 15 divided by 5? And that's a 3. And if we have a negative out in the front, that makes that a negative 3. And if we compare our left side and the right side of this equation, we see that they match. And what that means is that n equals 15 is the solution to this equation. And we're done with that problem. Let's take a look at letter B. Here we have one that looks a little bit tougher because it says pi times x equals negative 2 times pi. Well, pi seems like it could be scary, but it's not. We just need to know, how can we get rid of pi? So we ask ourselves, what is pi doing to the x? Well, it's multiplying it. So we want to do the inverse of multiplying, which is dividing. So we're going to divide both sides of our equation by pi, and that's the division property of equality. So we could actually write that down right now if we want to. And then we can continue on with our problem. So pi divided by pi is going to cross out and go away. And so we're going to have x equals, now if we look on the right hand side, we see that we have a pi in the numerator and a pi in the denominator. And so we're actually able to cancel those ones out this time too. And that's going to leave us with x equals negative 2. Now we still have to check our answer. So we're going to do the same thing that we did on the last problem. We're going to take our x, our variable, and we're going to replace it with the negative 2 that we got. All right, so we're going to go ahead and do that and replace that. Now if we have a couple different options here. We can either actually multiply 2 by pi and see if it matches our negative 2 times pi on the other side. Or when we have pi multiplied by a number, the number goes first. So if we rewrite the left side to be negative 2 pi, we see that now when we compare that to the other side of the equation, they're identical, which means that they're equal. So that's how we know that x equals negative 2 is the solution. Let's try letter C because it has a decimal. So letter C, we have 1.3 times z, or 1.3z, equals 5.2. So we want to know, how do we get rid of the 1.3? So we're going to divide both sides by 1.3, which is our division property of equality. So by the rule of inverses, we know that our 1.3 will go away. We also know that 1.3 divided by 1.3 is 1, and we don't write 1s in front of our variables. They're imaginary. We think of them as imaginary. So here we have z equals 5.2 divided by 1.3. And if we plug that in, we're going to get that that is a 4. And so now we're ready to check our solution, and we're going to do it the same way. So we're going to replace our z with the 4 in the equation. So we have 1.3 times our value for z equal to 5.2. And so we're plugging in the 4. And then over here on this left-hand side, if we take 1.3 and we times it by 4, plug that into our calculator, we're going to get 5.2. And then we're going to compare our left side and our right side, and we see that they are the same, which means that z does equal 4. Let's move on to letter D. Here we have y divided by 3 equals negative 6. So what is the inverse property for division? Yep, it's multiplication. So we're going to multiply each side by 3, which is our multiplication property of equality. We know that our 3's are going to cancel out, and that's going to leave us with y equals a negative 18. And so now we're ready to check our solution, and we're going to do it the same way we've done the others. We're going to replace our y with the value for y that we just got. So here's where our y is at. We're going to divide that by 3 and then check to see if that equals negative 6. So we'll go ahead and we'll plug in our negative 18. And then when we do the math on the left-hand side, we see that negative 18 divided by 3 is negative 6, and we should know that. And so when we compare our left side, or our answer on the left, to the right side, we see that they match, which means our y equals negative 18 is the solution to this problem. So if we look at letter E, we have 9 pi equals pi x, and so this is very similar to what we just did on B. So we're going to divide both sides by pi using our division property of equality, and then pi divided by pi is a 1, so those will cancel out, and we see that 9 equals x is our solution. And so now we need to check our answer, so we're going to replace our x with the 9 that we got. So replace that, and then from what we talked about with letter B, if we have a number times a pi, we want the number to go in the front. So this can be rewritten as 9 pi. And we can see from here, if we compare our left side and our right sides, they in fact do match, which means x equals 9 is the solution for this problem. Letter F is very similar to letter C, so if you wanted to give it a try, you could push pause here and see if you get the same answer. So we have 0.05w equals 1.4. And so we're going to do the inverse operation of division. So we're going to use the division property of equality here to get rid of our 0.05. And if we take 1.4 and plug that into our calculators, and divide that by 0.05, we're going to get that w equals 28. And so now we're ready to check our solution, and we'll do it the same way. So we'll take that w and replace it with the 28. So we'll have 0.05 times our w, and then have that equal to 1.4. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to plug in that 28. And if we do the math right here and we take 0.05 and we times that by 28, so let's see, if we plug that into our calculator, that's going to give us a 1.4. Now, if it didn't equal 1.4, then that means I had messed up somewhere, and that 28 might not be my right answer, or that I messed up in my multiplication. But because we see that it did match, we know that we got it correct, and that w equals 28 is our solution. And so that's how you solve one-step equations using multiplication and division.